May I ask you a question? When it says recording in progress, if you want it to be CC, closed caption, that if you don't push a button, then it automatically does that? Oh, I'm sorry if I'm
A technology question.
So we have been studying Tehillim Mem Test 49. And this is one of the most powerful rebukes of materialism imaginable. In all of Tanakh, where pasuk after pasuk after pasuk, very much in the way of Koheles, describing the futility of pursuing material comforts and luxuries as a goal unto itself, as if that's what we're here for, and more importantly, all of the loss of meaningful life, loss of eternal life that's entailed. So we were going to continue today from where we left off. Pasuk Yud Dalet 14. So Tehillim Memtes 49, Pasuk Yud Dalet, Pasuk 14. This is the foolish way. Zed Darkam Kesel Lama. This is their foolish way. Lama means for them, this is a way of life. This is their derek. To emphasize things and having things, enjoying things of this world. And it's kesel. It's foolish. You know, like the Targum says, shtus. You know, that's the common word still used when you teach boys in yeshiva that something is foolish. What does the Rebbe say? Shtus. That's where it comes from. Va'achareim. And here's what's so sad. How about those who come in their footsteps? How about their children and grandchildren? Well, they're not going to know any better. So then you're setting your family up for this Chalila, constant, eternal failure, where the children are going to follow the parents and have as empty, vacuous lives as their parents and grandparents have had. Chalila. Va'acharehem. Va'acharehem means those who come after them. B'fihem yirtzu sela. Yirtzu, Rashi says, from the Lashon hartza'ah, which means to describe something verbally. A speech is sometimes called a hartza'ah in modern Ivrit. And you hear the children, and that's a frightening thought. We've all seen this. You hear small children say things, maybe not such small children, maybe they're already, young adults, and you hear them espouse views or express interests in things that are so foolish, in things that are so ephemeral. And why would you care so much about? And you can, you fill in the blanks. And I've seen this so many times. I find it stunning. I got used to seeing it. I'll give you an example. Sports. Now, sports is not an inherently evil pursuit. As a matter of fact, it can be very, very helpful in terms of getting some exercise, in terms of having something that one enjoys watching and say, wow, look at what a human being can accomplish, look at the skill. But when it becomes something that's so important, when it becomes something so distracting from what life is supposed to be all about, that we start to say, I'm a fan. Fan? He said, yeah, I live in New York, so it's, so if the way we're supposed to think is very differently. my father, Lova Shalom, was in a small, very commonly Jewish kind of business. And when he first came to the States, he hears people talking about some kind of teams and a fight, so a war, a battle, and a constant between the Yankees and the Dodgers. The Yankees and the Dodgers. So my father said to me, all he wanted to know was, as the Yankees gewinnen, so geht for Jeden. And if the Yankees win, is it good for the Jews? That's all. How can we possibly care more than that? But you can see sometimes how I think of certain instances in which I saw a parent was, it was with, I don't want to say Mesiras Nefesh, it's too much, that may be an exaggeration, but Kimat, such an Ibigigabimkeit, so given over to the Mets. And by the way, that's like a Tulas Shav. They're such a weak team. They're always losing. So what do you? No, that's And then you watch the next generation and the children, also completely taken up with this. Now I don't know if that's how you've seen it in whether it's in Manchester or in London or wherever or rugby, football, and but all of this can become, unfortunately, in Eretz Yisrael, it's a big challenge. A major
difference between fine frume Yidden in Eretz Yisrael and others who are secularized fully or partly is sports. Is this whether it's the I don't know what the names of the teams are, but the football, the basketball, the kadorsal. Frume Yid just doesn't. Who cares? Certainly when it comes to possessions, things, Eilam Hazeh, you hear V'achareim b'fiyim yirtzu Sela. Sela is exclamation point. So B'nai Korach is saying, you have children following that foolishness, talking about that kind of pursuit, just like their parents. And all of them following blindly. Next pasuk tesvav. Katzoin l'sha'ol shatu. Shatu means they put themselves like sheep. They go to the Sha'ol, to the netherland, to the grave, without having done mitzvahs, ma'asim tovim, without having prepared for Olam Haba. Maves yir'eim. Boy, that's very powerful. Maves yir'eim means death itself leads them, shepherds them to an end that is final. When there should be a neshama that soars, that has become so pristine, so holy, so assured of a place with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Instead, they're being pastured and led like sheep to an end, to finality, to the grave. Vayirduvam yisharim laboiker. How about those who are Yesharim? V'yirduvam Yesharim. When that day of Geula comes, the Yesharim are going to be the ones who have mastery over them. Right now, they're the ones with all the power and all of the covet, and they seem to be in control of matters and affairs, even within our Jewish world. But Laboiker, in that morning that dawns in Geula, they will lose that place. V'tsuram. Levalois Shaol Mizavuloi. Tsuram here means their power. Tsur, like we say in a positive way about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Tsur Yisrael, V'galoi Kuma Bezras Yisrael. That's the description of HaKadosh Baruch Hu when they had to compromise on whether to mention him or not. Night today. Right, that's what they used in the declaration of the state. They used the description of Tzur Yisrael. But we understand Tzur means a rock upon which you can depend, your power. So here it means Vitzuram, the power
that they presume to have will ultimately be destroyed. Levalos will be disintegrated. Sheol in the grave. Mizavul loy, where they came. Mizavul loy means where they came from. Zvul, some beautiful home, some palace. Can't take it with you. That, I don't know what that 15,000 square foot place that you think, that's it. I've arrived. This is my olam. Unfortunately, it's your only olam. Galila. Oh, this is dangerous. And we're living in dangerous times because of that. Because there are extremes to which people are going in expanding their olam hazeh, particularly in America. I've seen it. I don't know what's going on elsewhere, but what I've seen in America is frightening, absolutely frightening. And I'm not exaggerating. When I say frightening, it's frightening because the real mindset of the individual is olam hazeh. They'll say, yeah, but if you do mitzvahs, and of course I believe in the Abba. Yeah. Okay, so then why are you spending your 18 hours, 19 hours of wakeful life thinking about preparing for and gaining more of olam hazeh? You're paying lip service to olam haba. You're paying lip service to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're saying all the right things. And you have all the right looks. You're wearing the big black yarmulke, and you go to shul in the morning, and you have a minyan, and you even have a seder once or twice a week. Wonderful. Once or twice a week. How about every day 5-6 hours and earning just enough to keep a nice home over your head instead of a palace? You have to see what's going on. People buy a small house that a family once lived in, wherever this is, whether it's in Long Island or in Howell Junction, whatever, New Jersey or Tom's River, whatever these places are. Take a nice place, very much livable, take it down entirely, and put up a house I'm not exaggerating, 2 or 3 times the size of what was there before. And not because we have 15 children, but because each of the 4 or 5 children, each has to have his own room.
And a playroom.
And a playroom. Okay, by the way, I can forget in the playroom. One playroom. It's over the top. It's all over the top. It's too much. And ultimately, if you would have to get them to take a lie detector test, they would have to admit that that's what's on their minds. That this olam hazeh is on their minds. That's what's on their minds. And you know what? A person is what you think about. You can have all of it, but that's not what I care about. A person is, what do I care about? What do you care about? What's your concern? Okay, let's go on.
What is Zvul?
Zvul is a beautiful palace, a beautiful home. You know what Shlomo Melech said when he built the Beis HaMikdash? Bana Banisi Beis Zvul.
Here they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Here it's talking about a person's own palace.
Zvul relates to
No.
wealth.
Well, yeah, not to wealth, but to a yes. And exactly, that's at the sherish of the name Zvulun as well.
And where it says the other part, Vayirdu Yisharim Laboker, that means like straight people will go down.
Good people know, but Yirdu means to rule over. Like, doesn't mean to go down. Vayirdu Bam Yisharim means, as in the Sefer Parshas, Parshas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Uridu b'digas hayom. It means to have mastery.
Rule over.
Exactly. The good people ultimately are going to master the world, right?
Oh.
Where do you think that there's a certain expression that they will inherit the earth? That's where this came from.
Okay.
That's where it comes from. How about the people who are learning Tehillim Mem Tes and who know better? Ach Elokim yifte nafshi miyad shol. But I will be saved from this. Elokim yifte nafshi miyad shol. My nefesh, my soul will be redeemed because I'm listening to what Bnei Korach are telling me. I'm listening to what Memtes begins. Shimu zois kol ha'amim. Every human being should listen to this. Ha'azinu kol yosh shvei cholet. If I listen to this and I'm smarter and wiser, then Elokim yifta nafshi miyad shol, Kadosh Baruch Hu will be saving me from the Sheol. I'm not going to have, a definitive end. Chalila, my neshama, my soul, my true soul, and my true self are going to be around forever with Him. Ki yikacheni, se'elo, when Hashem takes me. There's a minhag to say this in the base oven. After davening, this paragraph of Tehillim is said twice a day in Leilenu, a home where Avelim was singing. And you can imagine why. Because here you're saying that a good person, Kadosh Baruch Hu is paid the nefesh, paid the Hashem nefesh avodah forever. Kadosh Baruch Hu takes that nefesh and holds that nefesh close and dear forever. Therefore, Pasuk Yud Zayin 17, Al tira ki ya'ashir ish. Don't be upset or nervous. Doesn't just mean fear. Don't react with a sense of trepidation or with a sense of anxiety when you see so much success and so much wealth in others, and they have such a fantastic olam hazeh, and you might say, I'm missing out on so much. And you might, Chalila, be somewhat affected and, that's really a value. That's what it's about. You might question your own values. Al tira ki ashir ish, ki yirbe kvod beisa, when he has this great sense of honor and dignity, when everybody says, oh, look at him, he's so well dressed, he's so well, respected, and he gets shlishi and shishi, and he goes on vacations, and he's always smiling, and he's always happy, and he had his teeth whitened 3 times a year, so his flashes a smile that can brighten up the room. I mean, it just, it's like, wow, and nah. Kiloi v'moisoi yikach hakol. He ain't taking it with him. Kiloi v'moisoi yikach hakol. This, he's got everything. Go ahead, say. I don't know what you're talking about.
There was a story of a very, very wealthy man, I don't remember exactly who, that he told his children that when he passes away, he should be buried in his socks. You know this, yeah? He's buried in his socks, and clearly you're not allowed to bury someone with any part of their clothing. They have to wear the tachrichim. So afterwards, the tzava, when they opened it up, and it said, of course I couldn't be buried in my socks, but you have to understand that you're not taking any of the wealth with you. No matter what you want, you can't even take your socks with you.
I think it was Ross.
Yeah, it began with an R.
Well, not even the silk stockings. Okay. Lo yered acharov kivaydai. So all of the yashirish, everything that this wealth of the man, he's not taking it with him. And then Yirbe Kvayd Beisai, so the next pasuk, our pasuk Yudches says, Lo yered acharov kivaydai. That's not following him. And pasuk Yudches says instead, Ki nafshe b'chayav yivarech. He blesses himself b'chayav while he's alive. He says, v'yaducha ki seitiv lo. So one interpretation of the pasuk is that that's what he says about himself. V'yaducha, they will forever and ever say praise of you. As he looks in the mirror, he says about himself, Kisei tivloch. They're always going to look at you and say, wow, what a great person. What a great guy. But the truth is that doesn't happen. After the person's gone, after we say a few nice words, whether we really and genuinely mean them or whether he deserves them or not, he's forgotten. That's one interpretation. The other interpretation of the pasuk is that it's talking about good people, and about those good people, kinavshe b'chayav yivarech. That those very good people, worthy people, are people who, after 120, Yaiducha, they'll recognize your value and they'll recognize your contributions, how we talk about people who were great and contributors to Am Yisrael's well-being. They're forever people, kisei tivloch. They're always people who people will say forever and ever. Not nishmasei Eden. They'll talk about people and recognize how that person's place is in Gan Eden, this tzaddik, this tzaddikus. And they'll write, they'll be, in modern era, it's easy to write and publish books, so there are books published about great men and women in Israel. V'yaducha kisei tivloch. Kisei tivloch means you're doing good for your nefesh. Yaducha, people will say, he did the right thing. Kisei tivloch, because you have done good for yourself. They'll say, this tzaddik and this good person and that righteous person. And that's legacy. And the kisei tivloch means that we know that these people are in Gan Eden. And that's forever. That's lasting. What was mentioned in the previous pasuk, that in the case of people who are just all about their olam hazeh, it's gone. Just like the olam hazeh is gone, they are gone. Tavai ador avoisov, Tavai ador avoisov. When the day comes and you join your fathers and forefathers, and you'll see, dor avoisov means, previous generations. When we become the previous generation, when all of us become the previous generation, which happens to every generation becomes the previous generation. And then we will see something interesting about all of these people who lived for Olam Hazeh. Ad Netzach, forever, lo yiru or. They will not see the light. Just like they didn't see the light of truth in Olam Hazeh, the great light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the great luminescence of truth and of virtue. The opportunity of gaining Olam Haba, and that's all we are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be preparing by choosing right and rejecting all the bad decisions in life. We're supposed to be preparing for the good that's everlasting. Choose good in this world, so we have that good that's everlasting. It's as simple as that. Pasuk Chafal. We conclude, Adam Bikar, when a person is into Yakar, when a person is into apparent value, Bikar means open, seemingly valuable things to care about. And you don't understand what's of real value, and you don't understand what life is really all about, and you're wrapped up in things. If you're into what's yakar, I want more, I need more, I want to enjoy more, and you don't understand what your purpose is, and what's of real value, and what's of lasting meaning, Nimshal kabehemois nidmu. So then that person is no different from a cow. A cow knows grass. And look at the size of that cow, because that cow has taken in, has pastured, and has fed. Wow, fantastic. And then when the cow reaches a certain age or is brought to slaughter, nidmu. Nidmu means, from the word domain, silent. Yidom ahara. Nimshal kabehemos nidmu. You never hear from them again. They're gone. Instead, we choose to have life everlasting. To be valuable people, to be good people, to be nice people, to care about the important things. And we end up Elikin Yifte nafshi miyad shal. The neshama rises. The neshama in the Olam Ha'elyon is forever and ever and ever. As opposed to like a cow, buried and gone.
But in defense of a cow, in its life, it was very valuable.
It's
It
true.
provided milk, it provided meat. Every bit of it was.
It did it filled a very important purpose, 100%. Right, you're right. Okay. It didn't have Bechir, which is why it didn't earn a place greater than serving men. Now, man can choose. Do I serve fellow man and HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That's why man gets such credit, because man has a choice in the matter. We make of ourselves something. Yes.
How do you know the limits of what you should have? Like, should one have a big house, or should actually one live in a small place? Because everyone can.
It's a very good question, and I would answer like really with what I said before. It's not what we have or don't have so much as what we care about. You know, if somebody has a magnificent, beautiful home, because they can easily afford it, and they have a lot of children, Baruch Hashem, and grandchildren, they want to be able to have them come for a Yom Tov or whatnot, fine.
They open it up for chesed.
And
I just remember.
if it's not something that drives the person, that's the question. You know, if a person, but would it be, look, there's no question that someone who is fabulously wealthy, who says, you know, I've become fabulously wealthy, and here I am living in a nice one-family home in some kind of, you know, well, Golders Green or, you know, Borough Park, you know. I don't need more than this. And now let me figure out how to spend more time davening, learning, and helping my children similarly do more davening and more learning and living a spiritual life with the blessings that a material comfort can allow them and can afford us as a family. And that's what I'll teach to my children and grandchildren as a value.
So I remember we hosted a chesed thing in our house one day. A lot of people came from all different places. They came in and they said they couldn't believe like a house. And I was like so embarrassed.
And well, that's because you're from the people who say Ach Elokim Yifta Nafshi Miyad Sha'ol. No, I'm sorry. That's why to you it was like, you know, because you realize that indeed this is not what I live for. I have a home. It's not something that a nice home, but that's not my tzvek. That's not what I'm here for. And you have to also understand that we, Baruch Hashem, live in a world where this is no longer, a home is no longer considered a palace. Having one's own home, whether it's an apartment in a building or a self-standing home, is no longer considered, outlandishly wealthy. It used to be if somebody had plumbing, indoor plumbing, you were the king and queen. So but the flip side of this is that because standards have improved to such a great extent, what used to be luxury is now a norm. And that's dangerous because then what becomes normal increases. And that's the problem. But there are great and important families of very, very wealthy Yidden, some very frum Yidden, who do not allow any of this to take over their lives. They do not allow the pursuit of more to become the raison d'etre of their existence. And some of them are studiously careful to still drive their own 6-7-year-old cars, and none of this business of a $2,000 lease every month, and none of this business of crazy and expensive, unnecessary summer homes, and so on and so forth. No. And they can well afford it. It's not what they're living for. Okay. So the answer, therefore, to your question is that each of us has to take in what this Mizmar tells and say, what can I do to keep myself in check? What can I do to keep myself in check? That I don't need that. I don't need it. Because I don't need it, why should I pursue it? Can I afford it? Of course. I don't need it. Why should I pursue it? I should pursue, rather, spiritual growth. I should pursue expanding my mind and my heart. That's what I should pursue. So rather than say, and spend the time, where am I going for Pesach? This thing is a terrible, terrible thing. But I understand, on the other hand, you have a lot of children, you have the grandchildren, you want to all come together. But a Yom Tov is supposed to be a time to become closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To say, I am coming out of Mitzrayim, Hashem is taking me from Egypt, and we're becoming His people. That's what's happening. It's not a time of fun and vacation. Yet, there are thousands of people going to resorts and vacation destinations for Yom Tov, where, of course, there's a shiur and there's a fully stocked, they call it the fully stocked base medrash full of svarim, and very nice. But why are you going? What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
I don't want to have to cook.
Okay, that's fair. Very fair. That's very fair. It's too much work. It's too much work.
In some homes,
It's too much work.
doesn't do what doesn't get done.
It's too much work.
Sometimes she doesn't want to do it.
So if it's too much work, and for grandma and the girls to cook for Baruch Hashem 40, 50 people, it's too much work. Okay, so figure it out. But emphasize the kedusha of the Yom Tov. And I'll tell you something else. Figure out how to do it. Borrow space from your neighbors who are going away. Get their bedrooms for your kids and create a seder in your home, in your home, in the four walls where you live. Bring in the HaKadosh Baruch Hu and bring yourself to redemption in your home. Sanctify the environment in which you live, because that home will never be the same. It'll always be a different place. It'll be a completely different address because you had the Sederim there. That's where you created something and made something of yourself and your family. But that's what Yom Tov is for. It's not a time for vacation. Is it a time when you take off from work and you have the pleasure of not working and the pleasure of a good meal, celebrating HaKadosh Baruch Hu and celebrating our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Yes, it's supposed to be a time of such celebration. But it's not necessarily that, so where are you going for, what are you doing for Yom Tov? We're going to such and such a place where the program includes this, that, and the other thing, No, and look, you know, Hanachlehem Yisrael, we're holy people, but you know, we have to say that one can celebrate Pesach without going to Disneyland or Disney World, whatever it's called. It's possible. Sure.
You can go to Yerushalayim.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't have to be in Orlando.
Now, home.
Probably thousands.
Hotel for Pesach.
Yeah,
It was the best show,
Bon.
prize decision we ever made.
good,
My
Good.
husband was very happy. We
Good.
didn't have any prize.
good. That's already good.
It's
Good,
20
that's
years,
sign.
20 years in Israel.
That's the sign. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. What we say in China? It's
He doesn't want to make a say it.
No, it's not good enough. Okay, let's spend a little time. We should spend more. I regret that we fell behind in time.
In the Tehillim that I wanted
We
to-
are
oh,
going to study from Parshas Shelach. Of course, we're going to talk about our beloved Meraglim. They were beloved because they were such holy people, and from such great heights they fell, and we have to protect ourselves, particularly here in Eretz Yisrael, that we not make some of the terribly tragic mistakes that the Meraglim made. And now, let's understand that the Meraglim were very, very holy. They were the leaders, and Rashi tells us that at the time of their being chosen to be the spies, they were at that point in time tzaddikim. V'oisa sha'a kisherim hoyu. They were good people. So what happened? Reb Chaim Vital in Shar HaGilgulim tells us that not only were they on this great and important mission, but Yosef HaTzadik said to his brothers, he accused them, Meraglim atem, use that same word. You're Meraglim. You're trying to spy out and see how to conquer the land. He was right. They were Meraglim in the future of the land of Canaan. They were the Meraglim, meaning that when it says this was the Nasi of this Shevet and of this Shevet and that Shevet, it means that there was of the soul of Ephraim in Yehoshua ben Nun. There was of the soul of Yehuda in Kalev ben Yefuneh. And a bit of Yisachar, the great-grandfather, was in Yig'ol ben Yosef. And in Mata Binyamin, there was the soul of Binyamin in Palti ben Rafu, etc. It means they were joined by the spiritual power and rectitude of their avos. And that's why it doesn't say that they were Roshei Alfei Yisrael, the way it describes the Nisim earlier. It says, rather, they were Roshei B'nai Yisrael Hemo. They were literally the B'nai Yisrael incarnate. Meaning that they had the ability. Providentially, they were Binyamin, they were Usher, they were Gad, they were Dun, they were Zvulun. But you have to make that choice. Having great and holy yichus and having some of the spiritual substance of our forefathers and mothers does not guarantee that we'll make the right decision. We still have always free choice. And therefore, yes?
I was just wondering, Yosef accusing them that they were Meraglim, was it like they had something bad in them, Yosef's brothers, and therefore came out in the Meraglim, or was it like they were tzaddikim?
They had something good in them and potentially powerful, where they could find out truths for the sake of Bnei Yisrael and conduct Am Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael with a great holy stance where they would not have needed to make war the way they ended up having to make war. That's what Joseph was telling them. You're Meraglim. And unwittingly, Yosef is saying that you will come back as Meraglim. You will be there with the Meraglim hundreds of years from now, who will have the opportunity to do great things or not.
I see. They made the wrong choice.
They made the wrong choice. Now, this gets in, there's a lot of detail to this because there's something in the Torah, you may have noticed it, that when they come back from their mission, the Torah says, Vayoshuvu mitur haaretz, they returned from the reconnaissance mission of the land. Miketz Abraham. And then it doesn't say Vayava'u el Moshe. Now it already says they came back, and you would expect that the pasuk would say Vayava'u el Moshe, and they came to Moshe and to Aaron, and they gave the report to Bnei Yisrael. It doesn't say that. It says Vayoshuvu mitur haaretz, etc. Vayelchu vayava'u. What? Vayelchu. Where did they go? Chaim Vital says Vayelchu means. Listen to this. Those holy avos who had inhered in the Meraglim were not going to remain with them. Had they remained there, they would be part of the terrible tragedy. They would be part of the betrayal of the mission. Because the decision was made by these Meraglim, and we'll talk about why they made that decision, what mistakes they made. But they said that spiritually we're not up to this, we're not capable of it. We have too much fear of the challenge of coming into the land and being a people, quote, like others, but no, Am Yisrael in its land is different from other people in their land. It's daunting, it's too challenging, and we're not going to believe in ourselves enough to tell others that they should believe it. That's a encapsulation of their tragedy. But once that was where they were at, then Gad and Asher and Yisachar and Zvulun, that part of them, Vayelchu, left. And Vayava'u means the only ones who came back to Moshe were those who were of this time and blinded by what seemed to be a daunting impossibility of living a holy life in a land that's like seemingly like any other land, and we're supposed to sanctify our lives that way. And there's a tremendous Yetzer Hara. And remember, every place has its qualities. We've talked about this where they come to a particular place in the Midbar. We talked about this last week. They come to a place in the Midbar, and in that place there's a challenge called Kina, Taiva, Kavod, and it has to be defeated. Eretz Yisrael, the holiest of places on earth, which means the possibilities here are mikatze el katze. No place on earth can you rise as high as you can here in Eretz Yisrael. On the other side, the possibilities are just as stark. So we talked about this, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to us, don't do like those Canaanites have done. Kimais Eretz Canaan, like the Canaanim where I'm bringing you there, be careful. And Chazal say, because the two most dangerous spiritual places on the planet were Mitzrayim and Canaan. I'm taking you from such a place to conquer such a place. Taking you out of such circumstances so that you will teach mankind how to conquer and be master of your lives and not have the Sitra Achra be the master over you. So when it says, furthermore, that, well, there was the exception because Yehuda remained with Kalev ben Yefuneh and Ephraim remained with Yehoshua ben Nun. So the Torah says an interesting thing. The Torah says that of those 10 were taken, they obviously terribly punished in a terrible way. And the two righteous, Kalev and Yehoshua, the Torah says, Chayu, Yeshua ben Nun, Kalev ben Yefuneh, Chayu, they lived, min ha'anoshim ha'hem. Very strange. They lived. The other ones passed away. previous pasuk says, "Vayemusu ha'anoshim motzi'ei dibas ha'aretz ra'ah v'magefah lifnei Hashem." The other 10 passed away. A terrible plague, something terrible happened to them. Le'aleinu, gone. Next pasuk, Yeshua and Kalev chayu min ha'anoshim ahem. Min ha'anoshim ahem. Anoshim always means great people. The Chaim Vital says, yes, chayu min ha'anoshim ahem means they lived because, and it means that the life of Yehuda remained with them. The Yehuda aspect remained with Kalev. Ephraim remained with Yehoshua. Chayu min ha'anoshim. Instead of having to depart, they remained with their descendants. That virtue was a part of who they were. They built that up. They protected themselves so that they would be true to their father, to their grandfather, to Ephraim, to Yehuda. And what is it that we need to learn from this? We need to learn from this very much like what we said, as we learned earlier from Tehillim Memtes. When Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Uri'isim es ha'aretz mahi," some Sefer says, "Uri'isim es ha'aretz mahi" means how important can the land be? How much difference does it make if you have a little more, a little less? Is that what life is for? Why are you coming into Eretz Yisrael? For what purpose? What's the importance of the Olam Hazeh of Eretz Yisrael? You have the Olam Haba that you can lead yourselves from and rise from Eretz Yisrael in this world to Olam Haba in the next. You can connect from Yerushalayim Shalmata to Yerushalayim Shalmala. That's what Eretz Yisrael is for. And that's the Remez, Chassam Sofer, no less, says, in a why the words of Moshe are chosen the way they are. Rizim es haaretz mahi. Mahi means, what is it? After all, how important could it possibly be? And that's why, when it says about the nature of the land and the people who live there, chazak hu harafeh hama'at hu imrav. It should say, "Oy, is it this or that? Are they strong or weak?" It says no, hama'at hu imrav, because it's all part of the same question. What difference does it make if it's this or this? It all is about our preparation for our Elam Haba. It's all about using Eretz Yisrael to rise in our Avodas Hashem. And all the mitzvahs that we're going to do in the land. Not Oira'ah, Imra'ah. This is all part of his message to them. And when he says, V'hischazaktem, again, what does it mean? Be very strong, be courageous, and take some of the fruits of the land. Or because someone's going to watch you and you're scared you're going to get caught picking a few clusters of grapes or some figs and pomegranates. No, his chazaktem means strengthen yourself spiritually so that you could see what's important and what's vital in this land. And then come back and, yes, in spite of what seems to be the daunting task of living holy lives in a very material world, you'll say, that's exactly what Eretz Yisrael is for. Let alone that you won't be scared of the powerful people there and their armies and their giants and all of the other things that could scare us. Now, we are talking here, therefore, about faith, land, and leadership. In Eretz Yisrael, in this land, we have to have faith that there's a higher purpose to being here. Once we have faith in that higher purpose for which we are here, once we have faith that we're in Eretz Yisrael because that's the space in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows we are supposed to grow. That's where Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were told, you're going to change the world. from that space, from the way you're going to live there. You're going to have an impact that will be for the fulfillment of why I created the universe. It's tabur haaretz. It's the umbilical cord, because all of my purpose waxes or wanes depending upon. That's why I've placed you there, at the very center of matters in the universe. Everything will revolve around what you do or don't do. In a very, geopolitical way, we see it today. I mean, the whole world is all about what's happening because of the Middle East. What's happening because of what Israel will or will not do. Now, this idea of leadership is a focus of a short explanation of the good Arya of the Maharal in Chumash. The Meraglim, Rashi says, we're at that time. So what happened? What happened? And then later on, when it said Vayelchu Vayavau, remember we asked, well, what does it say Vayelchu? They're already back. So Vayelchu Vayavau is meant to tell us something that's not so good. That they left the wrong idea in mind, came back with the wrong idea in mind. 1 second, but Rashi said, what happened? Says the Maharal, it's very simple. They were fine. Accepted the mission. That was it. They accepted a mission that was at the behest of a people. And the people led them. The people inspired them in the wrong direction. They were no better than the force and the energy behind their mission. The force and energy behind their mission was, let's send, we don't know, we're nervous. Can we, should we go into the land? It's so different from the secure place we are here with you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Midbar. Instead of having a sense of tremendous confidence that we can and will, like Olonala, as David later heard from Kalev ben Yefuna. Kalev ben Yefuna was a leader. And he tried, even in that last desperate moment, to lead the Meraglim. The Meraglim should follow his leadership. When he says to them, we can do this. Notice he doesn't say we can beat the enemy. The whole mission, living holy lives, taking Eretz Yisrael and being a holy people different from all others. We can do this. But the Meraglim failed to follow Kalev and Yefuna. He, thank God, didn't follow them. He had the koach, the fortitude. Yehuda was with him. He went to Kever Avos in Hebron. He knew how to take his stand and remain there. That's how the Chedushi Harim explained the Maharal. He said, it's not just that once you become the messenger of someone, you automatically, assume no better a position than those who send you. It's more profound than that. It's that a leader has to say, I'm in charge. I could have a few 100,000 people. All these Shvatim had over 100,000 men, plus with the women and children. There were a few 100,000 per Shevet. And he could say, I'm going to lead them. They're not going to lead me. I will lead them. And I will believe in what I know is right and teach them and show them. And come back and assure the people, we've got this. Yachal nuchal lo. Once they waver, just a little bit. I hear, and I appreciate the doubts. You appreciate the doubts in the hearts of those who you lead. Once there's weakness of faith in the leader, the mission fails. What do we need in Eretz Yisrael today? What do we need in Eretz Yisrael today? We need leaders who are ma'aminim. Nikuda. That's it. Genuinely committed, wholehearted ma'aminim. And then everything else, all the right decisions, all the right sense of propriety and what's important, both propriety and priority, all fall in place once we are ma'aminim. Lack of emunah in leadership means then the people and what they strive for or struggle for starts to have the effect and makes the leader incorrect in his or her decision. Let's continue and finish up with a couple of thoughts on some of the specific words that are used. Efes ki az ha'am. Efes means yes, it's fantastic. The air, it's tova, ma'od, very wonderful. But Efes ki az ha'am is a reference to the fact that everybody has a yetzer hara. Ki chazak hu mimenu doesn't mean chalila that they're stronger than God. What does that mean? Everybody knows the famous medrash when they said ki chazak hu mimenu. It doesn't only mean they're stronger than us. Mimenu means chalila, they're stronger than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does that mean? Stronger than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Did Yisrael, did Jews believe that these enemies are stronger than God? Or did they believe that since we're not so deserving, since there's a yetzer hara driving our lives, will we be worthy of defeating them? Bless you. Are we going to live in this land in an oifen, in a way, in a manner of holiness, deserving for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to take such care of us? That's where leadership meant yes. That's where the leaders had to say, we can do this. You know, there's a fascinating expression where they, Kalev and Yehoshua, say, nothing to worry about. Al tiru esa am haaretz ki lachmeinu hein. They're our bread. We can swallow them up like a bagel. Well, what kind of expression is that? Ki lachmeinu hein. What does that mean? So the Sfas Emes says ki lachmeinu hein means that yes, lechem is the most obvious sign of producing from the land, working the land, sowing, harvesting, and then baking bread and feeding our families in a material way. And kilachmenu hem is an expression of the fact that we can do that and not fall spiritually. It is something that we are gifted through the Torah to be able to do. And that's our challenge. That's what we're here for. That's exactly what we're here for. We're not meant to live in a midbar miraculously, as if we're malachim. We're meant to lift the world by coming into the land and working that land and producing food like people, like human beings, with all of the mitzvahs and all of the holiness and all of the trust and all of the faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that lifts all of nature and all of creation itself and sanctifies it and brings out kedusha in all things. That's our purpose. Ki lachmeinu hein. And as far as the yetzer hara is concerned, says the Sfas Emes, sar tzilam. It's just a shadow. Is the yetzer hara real? Have you ever thought about the things that have been like going on in your own head, and this worry and that concern and this is important and that's important, and you look back at some of the decisions you made and realize that it wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't real. It was a shadow. And I acted because of something that wasn't so really important. What was it? It was a shadow. It was a shadow of importance. It had the image of truth, but it wasn't real. That's sort tzila. Tzila means their shade, their hatzalah. Those who can protect them, They're not there anymore. Eov died, as an example. They're not. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is not going to protect them. Sfas Emes says, as far as we're concerned, in our interpretation of the spiritual matters that they were battling with, spiritual doubts and spiritual self-doubts of the Jewish people. Sar Tzilah, what are you worried about? It's just a shadow. It's not real. That's not something you have to worry about. You can fight against that Yetzer Hara. You have the wherewithal, you have the means. You know how to set your life up and set your sights on what's true and what's right and make the right decisions. So don't think that we can't do this. We can do this. And that's the mission of Am Yisrael today. Good from Jewish observant Yidden in Eretz Yisrael and elsewhere are here today to tell fellow Yidden that message. We can do this. We can do this in a holy way. We can build the land and live on it in holiness and in righteousness. Do the Ritzayin Habayre, and then indeed the land will be ours forever. Again, thank you very much, Mrs. Jason, and have a wonderful